back to the Unsolicited Film Reviews Podcast. I'm Zach Miller. He is Martin Cook. And tonight we're continuing our TV trend. And we're going to discuss the best supporting and best leading actor, best characters, not actors, because that would be an entirely different podcast. But yes, the best characters, at least in our opinions, of the 21st century so far.
Yeah,
But
or at least some of
first,
our favorites.
yeah,
It's kind of hard to judge best on this sort of thing.
especially in comedy, which is the most subjective thing,
Exactly.
the art form you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
But first, we have a litany of people who died not only this week, but like a week and a half ago. We first off, Ozzy Osbourne, of course, the Prince of Darkness of course, is Little Nicky fame. But, well, we are a film podcast. He did revolutionize music and in his later years television in a way with the Osbournes, the reality TV show that led us into the home of celebrities for one of the first times, like well before the Kardashians were even a thing.
Yeah, it really was a pioneer in that realm. For good or for bad, I tend to hate reality TV, but it was definitely it introduced a whole new audience of people to Ozzy Osbourne, and obviously a totally different side to Ozzy that hadn't been seen before. But the absolute legend in the music industry, and yeah, made his mark in TV and film as well.
And we have Malcolm-Jamal Walker, who
Warner.
we Warner, sorry, of Cosby Show fame, but he had a very steady acting career all the way up until his death, and he died by drowning with his daughter in Costa Rica, which is just so tragic.
Yeah, absolutely horrible. I'm old enough that what some of my very first TV memories are of shows like The Cosby Show and Cheers and Night Court on those great Thursday night lineups, and Theo Huxtable was definitely a mainstay. So yeah, another 80s legend. The three we're going to talk about are all 80s. I don't know if you'd call Malcolm Jamal Warner an icon, but definitely 80s legends in their own right.
And last but not least, just today we found out about the death of Hulk Hogan at 71. And, he had a very checkered personal life, to say the least, but you can't deny that he was an absolute pop culture icon and legend in the 80s and 90s as well.
No, definitely. As you say, he became a bit of a problematic figure, court cases and things like that. But I think more than
Sex tapes.
anyone, yeah, yeah. I think more than anyone else, perhaps with the exception of Vince McMahon, another problematic figure, he helped make wrestling mainstream in the 80s. And you absolutely could say it was an undeniable 80s icon. His film work maybe wasn't quite as big. I mean, I think I'll remember him most from 1991 Suburban Commando. No, just kidding. I mean, it's obviously Rocky 3, but beyond Rocky 3, he didn't really make that much of a mark in film, but he was one of these names. Everybody knew him. Everybody knew what he looked like. I was him for Halloween one year with three different t-shirts that I could periodically tear off
Nice.
during the night. Yeah.
Yeah, just it's I think two out of these three we saw coming a long way down the road. Like pro wrestlers usually don't make it into their 70s, and
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan just made it past that mark at 71, and then Ozzy with his just legendary drug use in the
Yes.
70s and
Yeah.
80s. Yeah, he
And
made
then
it to 79, so
yeah, and then battling Parkinson's in his later years, as he was. So yeah, definitely a life. I don't know if well lived is the right phrase, but definitely some interesting lives.
yeah. And yeah, as we already covered, three just 80s icons gone in the span of about 12 days. So,
Yeah,
and as you texted me earlier, they come in threes.
they do.
So, on a more positive note, Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is planning on dropping his trailer for his latest series, A Shot, with uh oh God, Better Call Saul, the actress
Oh yeah,
Reese Seahorn.
This is actually the first. Yes, yeah. This is
Okay.
the first I'm hearing about it, though. You put it in the show notes, but I actually hadn't heard about this series.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And it's supposed to be like a psychological thriller, not just a crime centric like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. So it
okay,
looks the teasers I've seen are really interesting, and the full trailer is supposed to drop sometime tonight. So by the time this is out, it'll be available, I'm sure, on YouTube.
nice. I think it is Apple TV Plus, though, right? That's I think about the only thing
Hmm.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
And just to say, Apple TV Plus is really finding their footing right now. They're kind of having a moment. So good for them. We need more competition for good TV. It can't just be HBO coming up with the good shows all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. The onus cannot be simply on them. Okay. The South Park bros, Trey Parker and Matt Stone are billionaires now, and if they weren't already, because I don't look up their net worth on a regular basis, but they just signed a $1.5 billion deal with Paramount, and I'm sure there's a lot of this that bleeds into the next story and that we're going to talk about, but yeah, they're going to do another 5 seasons, and good for them because as
Yeah.
longtime viewers and listeners know, they are some of my heroes in the industry.
Yeah, as you say, good for them. And I mean, it's kind of a crazy amount of money, especially for a studio that's about to be sold, but maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Who knows? The economics of TV are a complete mystery these days, I think, to everyone, including the people running TV studios. So we'll see how this turns out, but good for the guys,
Yeah,
getting
like
the deal done. They get to keep doing what they love to do, and with no not many strings attached and all the money in the world to do it with.
yeah, they premiered their new season last night, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but Trump is not pleased from the news I've seen today, which can only mean good things. And the fact that the parent company of CBS, Paramount, canceled Colbert and gave Trey Parker and Matt Stone $1.5 billion in the same week makes it like that it's not all political because,
Yeah, although they tend to just fire in all directions at
oh,
all
yeah.
times, whereas Colbert was a bit more focused. But yeah. But yes, as you say, that brings us to the next big story, which is that just today, it seems like this has been coming for a while. As you mentioned, there's a lot of politics around this, but the FCC did approve the $8 billion takeover slash merger of Paramount by Skydance. So hopefully, setting aside all the political ramifications and some of the issues on that and what the FCC is doing and the pressures there. We hope, I think we will share this hope that just for the purely film side of it, this at least allows a legacy studio to keep making movies and TV shows and keep giving us all good content.
Yep. And Time Magazine just released its list of the 100 best, or I should say, yeah, the 100 best podcasts of all time. And it's supposed to be listed like the most influential and groundbreaking and all those different parameters. And we
Where
didn't
did we
make it.
rank?
Didn't make it.
What? Damn it.
I know
We'll
it's
have
a
to
fucking
make the next one.
travesty. But most
The
notably,
fix
and
is in.
I think this is telling for I think this is telling for the list. Joe Rogan didn't make it either. And say what you will about the guy personally, in his takes or whatever, but undeniably he's one of
Oh,
the
he's
top.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's crazy. Yeah, I hadn't taken a look at the list. Yeah, I'm not personally a big fan of Joe Rogan, but he's undeniably, as you say, one of the biggest and most influential podcasters of the podcast era, so of all time in podcasting.
yeah. So we're right there with him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah.
So you can't take this list into account. So now the box office review.
Yeah, so coming in at number one for its second weekend was Superman with another 58.5 million. It's up to about 433 million worldwide. So doing pretty well, but definitely not a juggernaut by any means. Second place, still holding pretty strong. The Jurassic World Rebirth, another 23, 24 million on the weekend in its third weekend. It's up to about 659 million worldwide, so doing quite well. And then in third and fourth place, two new additions that were two franchise revivals that nobody asked for, and that became very obvious with the box office numbers. Number three, I Know What You Did Last Summer, making a measly 12.8 million. And number four, Smurfs, making even less, 11 million. So
Mm.
nobody wanted these. I don't know why these were made, and clearly the audiences did not respond. Although, interestingly enough, Smurfs made way more worldwide than I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's made 47 million worldwide. I Know What You Did Last
Mm.
Summer's only made 28 million worldwide. So the Smurfs have always traveled well around the world because they're easy to translate and everything, Les Schtroumpfs and all this different stuff. But yeah, for both of those, there's a pretty dismal outings. And then coming in at fifth, still holding a little bit, but dropping pretty quickly, is F1 in its fourth weekend, about another 10 million to give it about 467 million total worldwide.
And this coming week, we have the Fantastic Four, First Steps, the latest Marvel fare. And so far, we don't have any numbers yet, but it's getting fairly good reviews from the publications and people I trust. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Then we have The Home, a psychological horror film with Pete Davidson, who just impregnated model Elsie Hewitt. So he just stays winning in life. Then number three, we have Together. It's a horror starring a real life married couple, Dave Franco and Allison Brie, and it looks intriguing, entertaining. Probably not going to go out to the theater to see it, but I might check it out Halloween time or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, so
So
before
into
we get
the
into our main thing, just for anybody who's watching on YouTube, just to explain the situation. I just moved, as you can see. I've still got U-Haul boxes. My place is a bit of a mess. Also, the air conditioning doesn't quite work yet in my new place, so it's I'm sweating like Ghislaine Maxwell in her prison cell right now. But um, sorry. Um, but yeah, so apologize to anybody on YouTube who can see the glisten on my face. That's what it is. But I'll try to make it through this for you, our loyal listeners and viewers.
Yeah, Martin is not on the run from the law, contrary to what it looks like. So yeah, let's get into some comedy. The meat of our podcast. We're gonna discuss, as we discussed last week, the best TV series of the 21st century. We decided to dig down a little bit and get into our favorite characters from strictly the 21st century. So you won't find Archie Bunker or Ralph Cramden or Lucille Ball or any of those in this particular one.
Or anything even newer, like Friends or Simpsons or Seinfeld. Yes. And yeah, and so for this week, we're looking just at comedy series. And then as Zach mentioned, so then next week will be dramas. So again, if you're looking for, well, where the hell's Don Draper and people like that, don't worry, that's coming next week.
So we're going to start with 10 supporting characters, and then the main event will be the lead characters. So Martin, kick us off.
Sure. So the first one I want to talk about is Roy Kent. This is a character played by Brett Goldstein on the show Ted Lasso. And this is just, it's a really fun character. He's this gruff, ornery, working class, aging football player. And that could have just been the character, right? But as you see, I think on a lot of the characters on this list, he becomes something much more as the series goes on because there are layers to his personality. He's not just gruff. He's got a lot of heart. In many ways, he becomes the heart of the show. And so I think that's definitely what makes him a really fun character. His orneriness, if that's a word, is also really funny. Like he's just so pissed off and doesn't take shit from anybody all the time, but with this real kind of, yeah, working class British accent. It's just he's just such a fun character.
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm not a huge fan of Ted Lasso as a series, just because I'm not a big fan of Jason Sudeikis. But I love soccer or football. And, yeah, from the episodes that I have seen, Roy Kent's definitely the standout, and so
Yeah.
I thought it was a good pick by you. And then we have George Christopher from the criminally short-lived HBO comedy Bored to Death. He's played by Ted Danson in all seasons from 2009 to 2011. He's a pot-smoking, womanizing man-child, and he plays Jason Schwartzman's character's boss slash mentor slash best friend. The antics they get up to is hilarious in that entire series. And it's not talked about. The entire series isn't talked about much these days, but it really is a gem in the crown of HBO's comedy lineup, which they are of which there are many.
This is one I'm ashamed to admit is totally flew under the radar for me. I did not really know anything about this show. I'm not totally sure when it came out. I think it was in the late aughts or something. Um,
I just said
so
2009.
Oh, you sorry, you just sorry, I missed you saying the time. So yeah, this is actually I guess I would have been in Afghanistan at that time, so not catching shows like this.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah, fair enough. But I do love Ted Danson, so I can imagine him being great in that kind of a role. So my next one is Abe Weissman. For any of those who listened last week, you'll know that we really love the show Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And this is the Mrs. Maisel's father, played by Tony Shalhoub. His character is just incredibly funny. He is basically at times the epitome of the absent-minded professor, absolutely brilliant in his field, but uh, kind of just confused by everything else. He's so insistent on his own beliefs and has his way he thinks the world should work, but is baffled by everything around him that doesn't fit in his worldview. And he's also this kind of revolutionary in his own mind, except when he gets in with real revolutionaries, and then he gets all upset because they're too chaotic and don't work or in an organized fashion. It's just a fantastic character, and Tony Shalhoub just really elevates it.
Yeah, he's just hilariously nebbish,
Yeah.
and he feeds into the a lot of the like the Jewish dad stereotypes, especially of the late 50s when Maisel is set. But it's done in such an endearing way that
Yeah.
it's you're in there with the family and you feel like you're part of the family. So it's not done in any way, shape, or form in like a sort of racist tone or anything
No,
like that.
no.
It's just like that's the way guys like that were. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you write that character. And yeah, Tony Shalhoub was absolutely amazing in that role. And then we have another one that completely flies under the radar when people talk about comedies is Murray Hewitt, who he's played by Reese Darby in another HBO comedy. It's going to be a trend for me at least, in Flight of the Conchords in both seasons from '07 to '09. Um, just a quick side note, HBO has a habit of making some of my all-time favorite comedies and then just
Killing them all.
cutting them short. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Murray, he's the deputy cultural attaché at the New Zealand consulate in New York City, but he moonlights as the band Flight of the Conchords comically inept manager, and he is like in a comedy show, he is really the funniest guy on the show, and one of the reasons why I fell in love with the nation of New Zealand and spent a couple months there in 2010. So.
Nice. Yeah, as you say, he's comically inept. He's also one of these people who's sort of aggressively inept. Like they're really, really, and so they just make everything worse almost because it's not just like they're just sitting back and being lazy. They're just like really in everything and messing up everything.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
he's actively inept.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a hilarious character. All right, my next one is Tracy Jordan, who's played by Tracy Morgan, a great acting stretch, I know, in 30 Rock. And this is okay. So here's probably the first rule of a good supporting character, I would say, is you have to be interesting. And
Mm.
that is absolutely the Tracy Jordan character. Like, you never know what is going to come out of his mouth from one moment to the next, from one sentence to the next. You can start a sentence and end it in a completely unexpected way. He's just so bizarre, but the character is also just a perfect send up of the needy celebrity. Like,
Mm.
how he has his posse around him who kind of do everything for him, and yet he's supposed to be this guy who grew up with a hard knock life and stuff. It's so good. So many moments that stand out, but the one that I just want to mention just because of how we opened the show, there's an episode where two celebrities have died, and he becomes really concerned that he's going to become the third because of the
Mm.
rule of threes. So he keeps trying to like force other people. So he calls up Betty White and is like, "Boo!" trying to give her a heart attack. He's trying to get other people to die so that he doesn't die. Anyway, just a hilarious character.
Yeah, as we discussed last week, I wasn't a big fan of 30 Rock, but he's definitely the shining star in this. And again, the few episodes that I've seen, he's really just the standout and the only one of the characters. Alec Baldwin sometimes, but they're two completely different senses of comedy between those two characters. So, but yeah, Tracy Jordan is like the one that really has like the side splitting lines that you just, as you said, you do not know what's going to come out of his mouth
Yeah.
next. So. Then we have NoHo Hank, played by Anthony Carrigan in a, you guessed it, HBO comedy. This time it's Barry. His official profile on HBO.com reads, and I found this really funny, so I wanted to read it verbatim. It reads, a fashionable, lethal, and tender Chechen mobster. And that really sums it up. Like, the duality within that character is so not just funny, but interesting as well. And again, as we discussed last week, Barry goes to some really dark places, especially in the final season. But NoHo Hank, even spoiler to his last, uh,
Yeah.
always put a smile on my face. And he's the frenemy of the titular Barry, and he's just always failing upward. He's like he's always like the reluctant mobster, but like he doesn't want to just kill people outright, but he's not afraid to do it either because he wants to be liked by everybody. It's just really really cool interplay between he and the rest of the characters. And Kerrigan was nominated 3 times for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, but didn't win any of those 3.
But this is a perfect example of how to create a good character, right? Like you take something that could just be a standard paint by numbers character. He's kind of a henchman, he's a mobster, but then you just totally flip it on it, flip it on its head, and add all these different layers and nuances. You know, as you said, they're sort of fashionable. And it just becomes an unforgettable part of that series. So yeah, great choice with Noah Hank. My next one is Leon Black, who's played by JB Smoove in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Now, this character probably began as like a bit of a spoof on the Kato Kalin type house guest. It came on in the 6th season of the show, but kind of like those people in real life, he just never left. He just never left the show. I don't know. I don't know if that was the intention, but he just became so much of a part of the show that he became a mainstay in the last few seasons of the show, he was right there as almost a main character, just constantly in almost any scene. And what makes this character so great, of course, is how he plays off the lead character, Larry David, because they couldn't be more different in many ways. And yet the characters always had something to talk about. And
Hmm.
his character became like a perfect sounding board for Larry David's mania because he was crazy in his own right. And they just would like ping off of each other with their absolute insanity. And JB Smoove is just such a, I don't know, he's kind of a hard guy to describe. Yeah, a great thing to say on a podcast. But but he's just he's funny because he clearly is just acting like a more exaggerated version of himself, but it still makes just an incredible character, and especially in the context of this series, which was very uh upper, class almost. They're always at the club and everything like that. And then there's just JB Spoof is just a house guest and doesn't give a shit. Just
Yeah.
awesome stuff.
Uh, who is Kato Kalin?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Wow. Jeez. Okay. So there's a tough thing. So that goes back to the O.J. Simpson trial. And Kato Kalin was this guy who was staying in O.J.'s beach house or something and was like a huge part of the trial because he was giving testimony for days and days at a time. And for a
Was that the
while
guy?
there in the 90s, he became like the name became synonymous with a house guest that overstays his welcome.
Okay, was he the guy driving the Bronco?
No, he wasn't actually
Okay,
driving the Bronco. That was somebody else. I can't remember.
okay. All right, yeah, that one went right over my head. Okay. Okay, yeah, but Leon Black, such a great injection into the cast, and he really shook things up for both Larry the character and the show itself.
Yeah.
And yeah, he plays an exaggerated version of his character of his of himself, I should say, and that's basically what Larry does as well. So
Yeah,
that's
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 true.
why they just like, as you said, they ping back and forth off of each other, and why they are so different, they're both the same in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
they just
Where it
like to complain
matters,
about
they're the
everything.
same. Yeah.
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 All right, so next up we have Ari Gold, played by Jeremy Piven in the HBO, again, HBO, the ultimate bro dramedy Entourage in all the seasons from 2004 to 2011, and then the movie in 2015. He's the fast-talking, foul-mouthed, ruthless Hollywood agent of star Vinny Chase. Based on real-life Hollywood super agent Ari Emanuel. And Piven won a Golden Globe and three consecutive Emmys for the role. And yeah, I kind of vacillated between him and Johnny Drama for this because Drama is also just fucking hilarious.
Mhm.
But I think at the end of the day, Ari Gold kind of drove the series a lot
Yeah.
more than Drama did.
Yeah.
While Drama was always comic relief, Ari Gold was just as funny but more important to the story.
Yeah, he's one of these characters that just kind of takes over the show. It begins as a supporting character, but becomes so important that, yeah, like I wouldn't say that he became the show was still around Vinny Chase, the Vinny Chase character, but Ari Gold's character really, as you say, drove much of what was going on. He's the one that anybody thinks of the moment you think of Entourage. It's his character. Just the way he just played this Hollywood agent to absolute extremes, just with the shit that would come out of his mouth, just insulting people, yelling at people. But again, like a lot of the people on this list, he's got a heart. He's got there's a good side to him. He is a loving husband and father. At the same time, that he's just a horrible person to everybody else around him, basically, who can't do him any favors. But just an iconic character, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That when you think of Entourage, you don't think of Vinny Chase or E. You think of Ari Gold, and you just think like as soon as I think of Entourage, I think of him just like storming up and down the halls of the agency with his flip phone, just cussing everybody out, calling everybody a fucker and a cunt, and
Yeah, yeah,
every other one in the book. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, and the final one for supporting characters, it's sort of a twofer because it is two characters who are played by the same person, and they're very similar characters, even though one is live action, one is animated. And those characters are Lucille Bluth from Arrested Development, and then Mallory Archer from the animated show Archer. They were both played by Jessica Walter, and it is just the perfect depiction of the overbearing parent or grandparent who has many, many issues of their own, who just, is sort of permanently sauced, is kind of the worst parent ever, like is overbearing but gives terrible advice and
Yeah.
but just so funny. And Jessica Walter obviously perfected this to the point that she, essentially played it in two different TV shows.
Yeah, yeah, when she was just the wife of a real estate magnate in Arrested Development, and when she's the matriarch of a spy network in Archer. But yeah, always a martini in hand,
Yeah,
always with something negative to say about her respective children, and
yeah.
just yeah. But it's amazing how she was able to not necessarily differentiate the characters from one another, but play the same character and be just as entertaining and not feel like, oh, okay, she's a one note person.
Oh no,
Because
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think as you say, it's the subtle differences in what her sort of job, quote unquote, is. Like in Archer, she is much more in control of everything, whereas in Arrested Development, she's kind of riding on the waves of what's happening. So maybe that's what kept it fresh. But
But she still feigns like she's in control in Arrested
yeah, oh
Development
yeah,
too.
yeah,
So
does. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, just
Yeah.
both terrible people as far as characters go, but again, just great fucking characters,
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's it for supporting, and now it's time for a drink break.
Woo.
Martin, you suggested this one. What do you got for us this week?
Yeah, so today we're gonna do a Harvey Wallbanger. And the literally, as I said to Zach, the only reason why I came up with this is because it sounds like it should be a TV comedy. It should be a comedic character from TV. I have no idea where the name came from. And but it's a very simple drink. It's kind of a twist on a screwdriver. And we will see if all of my ice is already melted.
Oh yeah, with your 85-degree
Yeah, I
apartment.
did put it in a
Yeah.
cooler with lots of ice packs.
God
So
damn.
we'll see if they, oh, just to keep it all right.
All
So
right.
basically, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to fill up your glass with ice. I'm going to put a whole bunch in there.
Yeah.
And then,
Rub some on your forehead if you're in Martin's situation.
yeah, exactly. And then you add 1.5 ounces of vodka. I will go here. And then, so get the 1.5 ounces of vodka and 3 ounces of orange juice. Probably should have pre-cut this open, but oh no, it's not a cut one. It's one of these. So I should also mention, there we go. So 3 ounces of orange juice. And then the third ingredient is an Italian liqueur called Galliano, which when I went to the liquor store, the person pointed to the counter and I ended up with a vanilla Galliano by accident. So I hope that doesn't make this absolutely disgusting, but you're supposed to mix up the OJ and vodka and then put 0.5 ounce of Galliano floated on top.
All right. And I have actually never had Galliano before, but I saw the mix of spices that's in it and it looks really good. All right, floating that bad boy on
Well,
top.
mine definitely, you can smell the vanilla. So this is gonna, so I'm making a vanilla Harvey Wallbanger, apparently.
And this is another opportunity. A lot of times people put an orange garnish on theirs, but I'm really trying to get rid of this jar of maraschino cherries. So I'm throwing one of those in there again.
I actually, on my recipe, maraschino cherry was an option as well. So
Okay, well there you go.
here we go. So I'll taste this now.
Okay,
Yeah,
I like
that's
it.
that's actually very refreshing on a nice hot day like today. That is absolutely perfect. Because yeah, it is very much like a screwdriver, but with a little added extra flavor
Mm-hmm.
that the Galliano brings. So not too shabby. And yes, definitely nice on a hot day like today. So for everyone else living in places where it's stiflingly hot or humid, go have yourselves a Harvey Wallbanger.
All right. Now to the leading section of this particular podcast. I'm going to pick some of our favorite leading actors of the 21st century, and I will kick us off with one Dennis Reynolds. He's played by Glenn Howerton in all 17 seasons of FX's/FXX's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, even though he's the one cast member that's threatened to leave the most because he has a lot of other shit going on, but he always comes back when they take a break and they're all best friends and they just want to have fun and do their show together like they always have when they started back on a random just VHS student film that they wound up getting a pilot from. But okay, so why did I pick Dennis out of all of the gang? And this is one of the hardest aspects of choosing characters for our podcast episode because so many comedies are just ensembles and like take Friends or Seinfeld for instance like there's like a main character but everybody else is just right there with them and so it's hard to just pick one but so his darkness is what sets him apart from the rest of the gang for me in a show that can get really, really dark. And he is truly a sociopath among sociopaths. He is like they're all sociopathic narcissists, but he is like a borderline rapist. They never really crossed that line, but he flirts with it and
Thanks.
definitely, but in a really funny way. He's
Yikes. Didn't
he's
think
the
this
founder
podcast was going there, but yeah, no, I know what you said. Yeah, go ahead.
he's the founder of the dentist system, which is a way to just gaslight women into sleeping with you, falling in love with you, and then just cutting them and leaving them so they have just trauma for the rest of their lives. And he's a 5-star man. He's a golden god, according to himself, at least.
Yeah, as you say, it's always hard to pick particular characters, and in this show, I'm obviously not nearly as familiar with it as you are. But you might think, oh, Charlie Day, he's kind of the crazier one, and he's more likely to be an interesting character. But I think you're right that the Dennis Reynolds character is maybe more interesting, and I think in a way, Glenn Howerton is it's probably him being more courageous as an actor to
Mm.
go there in some of these places that Charlie Day does crazy things, but Glenn Howerton really, yeah, as you say, he kind of really goes to interesting places with this character, and that's what obviously makes it a pretty compelling lead character in a long standing comedy. So my next one is not a very long-standing comedy, and it is the character of Jimmy Shive-Overly, played by Chris Gere on a show called You're the Worst, which, in my opinion, is a seriously underrated show. Not many people know about it. I love this show. And this is a character, he's a bit sociopathic as well, in a way. He's a character who's basically just given up on everyone. He's given up on everyone and everything. He's smart and witty, but incredibly mean to everybody around him. He's got serious issues, but he's also hilarious and weird in his own right. The very first episode you see him, he's slagging everybody off at a wedding that he got invited to of his ex-girlfriend for some reason. But then he manages to get home with a girl, and you'd think that, oh, you're trying to put on a good face, but no, he just throws on his big like sleep apnea machine. He doesn't give a fuck. He just really does not care what anybody else thinks. And it just makes for a very funny character. But again, as we say with a lot of these, there's a lot of layers to him. So he also has a house guest and a guy, even though he's very mean to the house guest in terms of his remarks and how cutting he is and some of the insults he throws his way, he's very generous and just kind of letting this guy kind of live off him because he knows he's into having hard times, sort of like Jimmy is, who's a writer who only had one big book and he's never been able to kind of recapture that glory of the fame that he had with his first book. Anyway, it's just a very interesting character and really funny. And anybody who's never heard of it or never seen it, you should check out You're the Worst, which was an
And
FX show, I should say.
right, okay, yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
double check. Yeah, in a lot of ways. First of all, I have you to thank for introducing me to the show in 2015, 16, somewhere around we were still in Burbank, I know that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never would have heard of this without you because FX is kind of notorious for not spending that much on advertising and
No.
promotion. It's all their shows are basically word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're going straight from Dennis into Jimmy because
Right.
they are very similar in a lot of ways. And I guess Jimmy's a bit more likable, even I mean, but they're both very,
Yeah.
very terrible people.
Yeah.
But again, like that's like FX's brand is having these kind of shows where you just kind of watching it with like one hand over your eye because they're just such terrible people, but also very engaging and very entertaining. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what makes a good character.
yeah, I don't think I ever got through the entire series, and I completely forgot about it until you brought it up for this episode. So I'm probably gonna go back and try to, yeah, get through that. But yeah, both shows and both characters are just so nihilistic and just
Yeah.
bring out the worst in humanity, but still in a really funny way, which is really hard to do.
As are a few of the characters I noticed actually on our leading character list here, but sometimes that makes for good comedy. Uh,
Exactly. Because next up we have Fleabag, and I totally forgot that we never knew her actual name.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's Fleabag from Fleabag, uh, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge in all 12 episodes of the Amazon/BBC series. Won a ton of Emmys for season two. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge won for Best Actress in a Comedy Series. She's flawed, funny, witty, and at times hopeless and tragic. And again, it's another just really complex, fully fleshed out character, very well rounded, very believable.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the show last week when we were mentioning some of the 25 greatest shows of the 25th first century, 25th century, damn.
We're not there yet.
The heat's getting to me. But and obviously the entire show is her essentially. I mean, yes, there are some fun other characters, Hot Priest and people like that, but it's so much her show that it wouldn't work, and it wouldn't have been such an amazing show if her character wasn't so compelling. And she's so compelling because she lets the audience in on all of her inner thoughts. I mean, not just because she's speaking to the camera and breaking the fourth wall and stuff like that, but because it's all the things that we go through in our minds sometimes when we're in tough situations and we're trying to justify things that we've done, or we're trying to, and she's going through all of it and we're seeing all of it. And it just makes for a very interesting character because it's the depth of the character. And at the same time, this being a comedy is really funny and really witty. That's what makes it Fleabag so great.
Hmm.
All right, next up, I've got Wayne. And this is a character played by Jared Kiso on Letterkenny. Kiso also created and writes the show. Now, this is a show that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with. It's a Canadian show, and I know up here in Canada we get it on Crave, but I do know people in the States who have watched it. So it must be available on something in the States. I'm just not sure what it is. And Wayne is the center of this crazy comedy. And he's the one that starts off most of the kind of monologues that the show has, or begins the patter between the characters that rises almost to the level of poetry with the timing and wordplay at times. He's what seems like he would just be another redneck at the first. I'll admit, when it was my brother actually who kept trying to get me to watch this show, and I'm like, oh, really? It just seems like just this kind of redneck, whatever. But it is not. He's not that character. It's not that show at all. He lives in a small town, but he's a man with a code. He's just got no time for dicks, basically. Although he is patient with the Amish family called the Dicks in the show. And they get a lot of juvenile jokes out of that. But it is just a really funny show and funny character. It begins with him basically somebody's challenging him for the spot of toughest guy in town. And so again, it seems like he'd just be this kind of tough guy kind of character, but he isn't. He's really the one who cares for the entire town and looks after everybody. And it's just a very interesting character, but also hilarious. And as I said, the kind of wordplay that he uses is just so unique to Letterkenny, and it takes you a while before you get used to it, but once you do, it is just original and incredible.
Yeah, I have. Well, first of all, Letterkenny is available in the States on Hulu and Disney Plus.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent.
I have heard of this show, but I have never seen a single clip, let alone an entire episode.
It's very different, and it takes you a second to, as I say, kind of get used to the manner of speaking. But then once you do, you'll get hooked.
Okay. So yeah, no notes on Letterkenny. We'll all take we'll take Martin's word for this one. So next up we have Kenny Powers. Very unlike Wayne, he is a redneck with no moral code.
Yeah.
So good transition. So played by Danny McBride in yet another HBO comedy, Eastbound and Down from 2009 to 2013. And a little side note, for all the praise HBO has received over the past couple decades for their dramas, they're pretty fucking good at making people laugh as well.
True.
So Kenny is a racist, misogynist, narcissistic redneck ex-pro baseball player with a rocket for an arm and not much of a redemption arc. He's the kind of character you hate to love, and he usually gets his due comeuppance for his many, many flaws. After being forced out of baseball due to his losing his fastball, and after blowing his millions on jet skis and cocaine and hookers, Kenny is forced to move in with his brother and family in North Carolina. He takes a job as a substitute elementary school PE teacher, which is like, as far as teachers go, the lowest you can possibly go. Not even a PE teacher, you're a substitute PE teacher. And yeah, hilarity ensues.
This is really the role that Danny McBride was born to play. Like
Mm,
he's played so many roles, but when you think of Danny McBride, this is the role that stands out. I don't know Danny McBride, but it seems like this is just him turned up to 11,
yeah.
right? Like this, it's just such a crazy. I mean, I don't think Danny McBride's as racist and awful as the character is, but I mean, just in terms of the mannerisms, in terms of the way he's just like aggressively like trying to be pushy and whatever. It just kind of seems like Danny McBride is just great at playing these kind of characters, and this one is the epitome of that. And it can be a little much after a while, but when it's on, it is one of the most unique and hilarious characters out there. All right. My next one then is back to animated and back to a show that we already mentioned, and that is Archer. And this is the lead character of Sterling Archer. This is voiced by,
Sterling Mallory Archer.
yes, that's right. Sterling Mallory Archer, named after his mom. The character is voiced by H. John Benjamin, who it has to be said looks nothing like the character. And that's a reason why they've kind of tossed around the idea of trying to make a live action version of this for years. It's
Mm,
been suggested, but it will probably never happen. It would never work because the voice that H. John Benjamin gives him is just so perfect and unique. And you couldn't have the character without it. The way he's got this like almost stupid little giggle sometimes when he gets excited about things, and
yeah.
yet his like deadly serious voice and his like it's just the voice acting work by H. John Benjamin is fantastic. This is another one of the characters that like kind of like any powers doesn't really have any redeeming qualities. He's spoiled, he's largely an idiot, he's selfish, but yet he's absolutely hilarious because the character says all of the mean things that I'm sure we all wish we could at times. And really, he's just like a big child without a filter, like right
Sure,
down to
sure.
getting excited about fancy cars and toys and guns and just being selfish and sulky. It's just a hilarious character.
Yeah, I love especially the first few seasons of Archer.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen I think when they did Archer Vice
They
is when
started
I
going in really weird directions. They did like
yeah,
this.
which I'm
Yeah.
sure were still funny, but there's just so much shit to watch, and
Yeah,
if I'm
it's true.
you know it's just one of those things that happens, and maybe one day I'll go back and see those. But yeah, he's such a fantastic character, you know, just uh also like just desperately pining for his mother slash his boss his attention all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, this the interplay between those two is why they're both on this list. And yeah, and great cast of characters around him,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is of course essential, especially in a comedy. But yeah, from the very first scene of this series, I was like, oh, okay, this is something different because it's
Yep.
not just like a James Bond parody, although there are, of course, elements in it, but it's just like it's its own thing while still being like a send up of all spy movies and thrillers and things like that.
Yeah.
So another animated character on our list is Morty Smith from Rick and Morty on Cartoon Network slash Adult Swim. I don't even, they're not separate networks, but Adult Swim's like the adult version of Cartoon Network. If anybody doesn't know that, weird. Voiced by Justin Roiland from seasons 1 through 6 before he got severely Me Too'd and replaced by Harry Belson. So, but Morty is a 14-year-old boy, kind of, sort of, based on Marty McFly.
Yeah.
Uh, he joins his grandpa Rick as they tour the universe for adventures in sci-fi rigmarole. He's awkward, lacks self-esteem, impressionable, easily manipulated, basically like any 14-year-old boy. And but he's also good-natured and naive, and he's the perfect foil for Rick. He's the heart and the moral compass of the show, in contrast to the pure id of Rick. And that's kind of why I chose Morty over Rick, is because Morty's a lot more layered. He's the one that learns lessons throughout the series. He's the one that grows as a character to kind of uh, start to push back against Rick as he just gets browbeaten by him over and over and over, and he's just like the subject of Rick's experiments and things like that. Because Rick's just like all over the place. He's the like I said, the id, but he's also just like completely oh god, what's the word? Um
Unethical.
yeah, unethical, but hedonistic is the
Yeah,
word
right.
I'm looking
Yes.
for. He
Yeah.
just gives into all his base desires, where Morty is trying to grow as a person, and I just think that makes him a more interesting character.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the right choice. As you say, the Rick character is really kind of, yeah, like an unethical Doc Brown, compared to the Marty McFly that you mentioned that Morty is very loosely based on. It and those kind of characters are, it's also because the world, or should I say worlds, that they go into in the show are just so crazy and outlandish and ridiculous that as the audience, we kind of need almost this blank slate Morty character to be kind of our into these worlds. So we've got something to ground us. And he does that. And the way he reacts to things, as you say, he's a little shy and browbeaten, especially in the first few seasons. But that's just very important for the show to actually work.
Mhm.
All right, next up, and unlike some of the other characters we've got on this one, this is a good guy. This is Phil
Yeah.
Dunphy. This is played by Ty Burrell on Modern Family, which ran for 11 seasons. He is the epitome of the try-hard dad who thinks he's the cool dad. Like he just really wants to be the best friend of all his kids, and he also really wants to be accepted by his father-in-law. Which acceptance is very hard to come by. But at the same time, he's another one that's just kind of a big kid. Like he's got, except this time with a heart of gold. He loves magic, he loves toys, he loves setting off rockets and things like that. But the other thing is he's almost completely sorry, not useless, clueless.
Mm.
A large part of the time, he doesn't really know what's going on really with this kid's lives. He seems to be shocked by any big development that his wife, who's a little bit more street smart, understands way before he does most of the time. But the interplay between them works that because of that, right? Like he's the kind of fun, clueless guy, or tries to be the fun, clueless guy. She's the one who really kind of has to keep it all together. But his character is just so much fun, really funny again in the comedy sense, but also the heart of the show again. And a lot of these that we've mentioned, good or bad, they're the heart of the show. He is just absolutely the center, I think, in my opinion, of this show.
Yeah, he's so likable just because he's so sweet and naive as
Yeah.
you just illustrated. And well, he's not going to give you the belly laughs that a lot of the other supporting characters do around him. He is kind of that anchor where he's just there and everything's happening around him and to him, and he's just trying his best to, keep a smile on and push through and be the best dad that he can, and to varying results. But yeah, it's just such a well-rounded character, so relatable to
Yeah.
anybody. And yeah, I thought that was a really good pick, and another ensemble cast where there are a lot of quote unquote lead characters.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah, including his wife, played by Julie Bowen, who is great in her own right.
yep. All right, then we have Miriam, also known as Midge Maisel from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, played by Rachel Brosnahan for the entire series run from 2017 to 2023. And she is as funny and witty as she is stunningly beautiful. She is a Jewish American Manhattan housewife in the late 1950s. She lives an idyllic life, and her dad is Tony Shalhoub, as we already talked about. But this idyllic life is upended completely when her weakling of a husband cheats on her with his secretary. She deals with this crisis by, as most women that get cheated on do, by transitioning into a massively successful career in stand-up comedy.
Yeah, that takes the 5 seasons to become successful, which is where the real engine of the story is for this series. This is just such a great character, and it's one of these ones that's sort of intimidating for anybody who's a writer or wannabe
Mm.
writer to think of what Amy Sherman Palladino and her husband did in coming up with this character just out of thin air. I mean, maybe it's sort of loosely based on kind of the comics, or female comics of those years, like Phyllis Diller, people like that. But it's really a wholly original character, and that it's this, yeah, as you say, it's this housewife who goes on stage. The comedy is always great. So it's not like there's a lot of shows about stand-up comics where
Yeah.
you see them and they're not particularly funny. She is funny when she needs to be. Sometimes she flops though, but she flops for very good reasons.
That helped the
Sometimes
story. Yeah.
yeah, that helps the story. Or sometimes, she just doesn't read her audience right. When she starts talking about cheating husbands in front of Jackie Onassis or Jackie Kennedy, things like that. But it's just such a great and original character. And again, so layered. There's so much to her. I mean, she's this person who's really kind at times to everyone around her and tries to really help people out. But at the same time, she's also a product of her upper middle class lifestyle and doesn't really understand when she's taking advantage of the live-in housekeeper that they have and things like that. And just it's just such a good, well-developed, full character. And again, yeah, played brilliantly by Rachel Brosnahan, who, interestingly enough, isn't Jewish, but I just have no idea who else could have played this part
Mm.
as well.
Yeah, and I should mention that she was nominated 4 times for the Emmy in lead actress for a comedy series, and won just the one in 2018.
Mhm.
But yeah,
That brings,
you're also right. Really quick,
yeah,
it's just stand up in TV and film is so hard to navigate
yeah,
because they either aren't good at it as far as the writing goes, or they kind of tiptoe around it,
right.
and they'll
Yeah,
put the comedian up on stage, and then we'll cut to after the set because stand up is hard. It's hard to write jokes. That's why not everybody does it. So that was a
yeah.
good point. But
Well, and it also it worked perfectly, right? Because again, as a character, she's bringing everything from her life and all the
mm.
things around her onto that stage. And so it all comes together so well. We've raved about the show enough, but for anyone who hasn't watched it, you really have to. And that brings us to our final character in the lead character in a TV comedy series of the 21st century. It's a very specific category, it seems. But that is the character of Michael Scott. And this is obviously played by Steve Carell in The Office. He was in that show for the first 7 of 9 seasons, although he returned for a couple episodes near the end. And I think, in my opinion, I think, and probably in a lot of people's opinion, the show really dropped off after his character left the show. It is just an incredible character because he's such a deeply insecure person. And that's a bit of a theme. Some of these great comedic characters have a serious insecurity at their heart. And at the
And
beginning
comedians
of
in
the
general.
yeah, yeah. And at the beginning of the show, he's kind of the villain, right? Like he's always doing the wrong thing and saying the wrong thing and being completely tone deaf to everyone around him and pushing people into situations where they're not comfortable. But as the show went on, even the other characters, in spite of themselves, kind of form an unwavering loyalty to him because they know that that's how he is with them, right?
Hmm.
Like that's
Hmm.
there's this great scene, I don't know how many seasons in, where Jim and Pam, the whole will they won't they haven't officially come together yet. And Pam is exploring trying to be an artist and she's showing some art at a little art exhibit. And because of everything going on in the office and everybody else's issues, no one shows up except Michael Scott. And again, for the character that starts out as the character who does the wrong thing and people don't really, nobody really likes, people want to try to get away from any conversation with him. That just adding those layers of, he really wants to be loved, he really wants this friendship that causes the humor of the insecurity at the beginning,
Hmm.
ends up giving his character such depth that it becomes just one of the best characters of the 21st century.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily a ranking, but I felt like we should save Michael Scott for the last
Mm,
because yeah, you're right in all of your points. And while I put the UK version of The Office in our rankings of TV shows last week, I will completely 100% readily admit that Michael Scott is a much better and fully fleshed out character than David Brent was in the original Office, played by Ricky Gervais.
mm,
And for all the reasons you just stated as well, yes, he actually has an arc, which
yeah,
in sitcoms is like a no-no because
yeah,
you don't want anything to change. Everything has to reset so that anybody can hop in at any time and pick up all the relationships and keys, which is uh you know it's a kind of a boring format, which is why it's kind of lost its luster as a format
mm,
overall these past few years. But yeah, Michael Scott's one of the first to come in and just very gradually, it wasn't like any huge thing, but as Steve Carell started to evolve as an actor and the show started to evolve, he just yeah, he turned into a very endearing character, even though he was still super awkward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's capable of like moments of tenderness, like the one that I talked about. But then also, there's another really famous episode with a disastrous dinner party when he's dating this this woman called Jan, and they're just like hurling insults at each other throughout the whole night, and everybody that's been invited to this party that really doesn't want to be there just has to sit there so awkwardly, and the entire episode is just dripping with awkwardness. But he's such a great character because he's got that range, right? Like he gives the audience all these different kinds of emotions. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and as you said, as soon as he left after season seven, the show just completely fell off. So he was
Yeah.
obviously the glue that held everybody together
Yeah.
in that show. Even though there were admirable efforts from the likes of like Will Ferrell and others.
Idris
So
Elba. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if those two guys who are diametrically opposed as far as the thespian community goes, if neither of those guys can save the show, then you know that Steve Carell was doing something really good
Yeah.
in those times. So yeah, that's it. If you have any comments or you think we didn't do a good job on this list, obviously let us know in the comments, and
Yeah.
we
Let,
will
let us
address
know
them.
some of your favorites that we didn't talk about. Maybe
There has
maybe
to be
maybe
some.
we like them too and considered them and just didn't talk about them, but maybe they're ones we hadn't considered. So yeah, please let us know.
Yeah, coming up with these lists is not as easy as it looks, folks.
No.
But be sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. And next week, as yeah, we mentioned before, we're bringing you this exact same format, but for drama. The best leading and supporting characters since 2000, but in a much more fancy and elitist category, if you will. All right, guys.
Prestige. It's all
Yes,
about prestige next
yes.
week.
Okay, we'll see you next week on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. I'm Zach Miller. That's Martin Cook. Thank you for watching and listening.
Goodbye, everyone.